Welcome back to AutoLab, where we make automotive technology easy to understand. In today's video, we'll be taking a closer look at car sensors. Have you ever looked at these car sensors and wondered what they actually do? Why can one tiny sensor cause rough idling, poor acceleration, warning lights, or even stop a car from starting? In this video, I'm going to explain each sensor simply: what it does, why it matters, and what can happen when it goes faulty. So by the end of this video, you won't just know the names, you'll actually understand what these sensors do. Modern cars depend on sensors for almost everything. You can think of sensors like the eyes, ears, and nerves of the vehicle. They collect information from different parts of the car and send that information to the ECU. The ECU is the car's computer, and that computer uses sensor information to make decisions. It controls fuel delivery, ignition timing, engine temperature, emissions, safety systems, and even comfort features. So when a sensor gives the wrong signal, the car starts making the wrong decisions. And that is when problems begin. Let's go through these sensors one by one, in the simplest way possible. First, we have the engine speed sensor. This sensor tells the car how fast the engine is spinning. That speed is usually measured in revolutions per minute. Revolutions per minute. The ECU needs this information to help control the engine properly, because if the computer does not know engine speed, it cannot manage timing and fuel correctly. So what happens if this sensor goes bad? The engine may run rough. It may hesitate, it may stall, and in some cases, the car may not start at all. So even though this sensor is small, it plays a very important role. Next, we have the NOX sensor. The NOX sensor listens for abnormal vibration in the engine. This happens when combustion is not smooth. Instead of fuel burning in a controlled way, it starts knocking inside the engine. That knocking can damage engine parts over time. So the NOX sensor listens for that problem and warns the ECU. Then the ECU adjusts timing to protect the engine. If the NOX sensor becomes faulty, the engine may lose power, fuel economy may get worse, and in some cases, the engine may continue knocking without proper protection. That is why this sensor is so important. Now let's talk about the airflow sensor. This is often called the MAF sensor. Its job is to measure how much air is entering the engine. This matters because the engine needs the correct mixture of air and fuel. Too much fuel is a problem. Too little fuel is also a problem. So the airflow sensor helps the ECU decide how much fuel to inject. If this sensor fails, the air-fuel mixture can become incorrect. The car may idle badly, acceleration may feel weak, fuel consumption may increase, and the engine may run rough. So this sensor is very important for smooth performance. Next is the cam sensor, also called the camshaft position sensor. This sensor tells the ECU the position of the camshaft. The camshaft controls the opening and closing of the engine valves, so the ECU needs to know exactly where it is. That helps the engine know when to inject fuel and when to fire ignition at the right time. If the cam sensor goes faulty, the engine may misfire, it may idle badly, it may lose power, and on some vehicles, it may become hard to start. Next, we have the coolant sensor. This sensor measures the temperature of the engine coolant. The coolant flows through the engine and removes heat. So this sensor tells the ECU whether the engine is cold, warming up, or already hot. That information is very important because a cold engine needs different fuel settings than a hot engine. The coolant sensor also helps with fan control and engine protection. If this sensor becomes faulty, the engine may start badly. It may use too much fuel, it may overheat, or the temperature reading may be wrong. Now let's talk about the temperature sensor. This is a more general type of sensor. Because cars use temperature sensors in different places, some measure intake air temperature, some measure oil temperature, some measure transmission temperature, and others measure heat in different systems. Their job is simple. They tell the vehicle how hot or cold something is. If a temperature sensor gives the wrong reading, the ECU may make poor decisions. That can lead to bad fuel economy, poor performance, cooling problems, or warning lights on the dashboard. Next is the NOx sensor. This sensor measures nitrogen oxides in the exhaust gases. These gases are harmful pollutants, so the NOx sensor helps the emissions system reduce pollution. This sensor is especially important in modern diesel vehicles. If the NOx sensor becomes faulty, the vehicle may show an emissions warning light. It may fail an emissions test, and on some vehicles, it may even go into reduced power mode. So this sensor is very important for clean exhaust systems. Now let's look at the MAP sensor. MAP stands for Manifold Absolute Pressure. This sensor measures pressure inside the intake manifold. That pressure helps the ECU understand engine load. In simple words, it tells the car how hard the engine is working. When you press the accelerator, intake pressure changes. The MAP sensor reads that change and sends the information to the ECU. If this sensor fails, the engine may hesitate. It may idle poorly. It may use more fuel than normal, and it may feel weak during acceleration. Next is the parking sensor. This one is not for engine performance. It is for driver assistance and safety. Parking sensors help detect objects near the vehicle, especially while reversing or parking. They work by sending out signals and measuring how close an object is. That is why the car beeps faster when you get closer to something. If a parking sensor goes faulty, it may give false warnings. It may miss nearby obstacles, or it may stop working completely. That can make parking harder and less safe. Now we have the vehicle speed sensor. This sensor tells the car how fast the vehicle is moving. That information is used by the speedometer. It is also used by the transmission, cruise control, and other systems. So this is a very important sensor. If it becomes faulty, the speedometer may stop working correctly, the transmission may shift badly, cruise control may stop working, and warning lights may appear. Next is the oxygen sensor, also called the O2 sensor. This sensor measures oxygen in the exhaust gases. That helps the ECU understand whether the engine is burning too much fuel or too little fuel. So the oxygen sensor helps fine-tune the air-fuel mixture. This improves fuel economy, it improves performance, and it helps reduce emissions. If the oxygen sensor goes bad, the car may use more fuel. It may run rough, it may produce more pollution, and the check engine light may come on. Next is the throttle sensor, also called the throttle position sensor. This sensor tells the ECU how far the throttle is open. When the driver presses the accelerator, the throttle opens to let more air into the engine. The throttle sensor reports that movement to the ECU. That helps the car respond properly when accelerating. If the throttle sensor becomes faulty, the car may hesitate, it may jerk, it may lose power, or it may respond badly when you press the accelerator. Now we come to the crank sensor, also called the crankshaft position sensor. This is one of the most important sensors in the engine. It tells the ECU the position of the crankshaft and how fast it is turning. The crankshaft is a major moving part inside the engine. The ECU uses this signal for ignition timing and fuel injection. Without this sensor, the ECU may not know when to fire spark or when to inject fuel. If the crank sensor fails, the engine may crank but not start. It may stall suddenly, or it may run very badly. So this is a critical sensor. Next is the voltage sensor. This sensor monitors electrical voltage in the vehicle. It helps the car track battery and charging system health. Modern vehicles depend heavily on electronics, so stable voltage is very important. The voltage sensor helps the car know whether the electrical system is healthy. If this sensor becomes faulty, the vehicle may have charging issues. Battery warning lights may appear. Starting may become weak, and strange electrical problems may happen. Finally, We have the rain sensor. This sensor detects water on the windshield. It helps control the automatic wipers. When rain hits the glass, the system can switch the wipers on automatically. And if the rain gets heavier, the system can increase wiping speed. If the rain sensor goes faulty, the automatic wipers may not work properly. They may wipe too slowly, too fast, or not work in auto mode at all. So when you look at all these sensors together, you can see something very important. Each one has its own job. Some help the engine run properly. Some help reduce pollution. Some improve safety. And some make driving easier and more comfortable. But all of them do one basic thing. They provide information. And that information helps the car decide what to do. So when a sensor fails, the car is not always missing a part. Sometimes it is missing the correct information. And when the information is wrong, the car starts making the wrong choices. That is why one small sensor can cause big problems. And that's your beginner-friendly guide to the most common car sensors. Now, when you see these parts, you won't just recognize the name. You'll understand the job they do. If you enjoyed this video, comment below and tell me which automotive part I should explain next. And for more simple auto breakdowns like this, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.